My name is Monique Rhodes, and I help people transform their relationship with their mind so they can get unstuck and feel calmer and happier. So my programs are taught in colleges and universities around the world and in Fortune 500 companies. And here I teach what I use to heal my own life. So I want to take you somewhere with me for a second. I want you to picture this. I'm high up in the Himalayas. I'm on a motorcycle. My knees are caked in mud, not a little bit of mud up to my knees. So I've just ridden through a literal tunnel of snow, and I'm suffering from altitude sickness, which, if you've never had it, feels like someone is slowly squeezing your brain from the outside while the ground moves beneath you. And I remember thinking, what am I doing here? But here's the thing. I also remember the feeling when I pulled up to where I was staying that night. It was one of the most profound feelings I've ever experienced in my life. Not because I'd proved something to the world, but because I'd proven something to myself. And this is what I want to talk to you about. We've been sold a lie about confidence. The lie is this, that confidence is something you earn, that it comes from achievements or from results or from other people nodding at you and saying, yeah, you did it. Or that you have to collect enough wins before you're allowed to feel good about who you are. And I understand why we believe that. Because when things go well, we do feel confident. So it makes sense to connect the two. Results equals confidence. No results, no confidence. But here's what that belief actually does to you in practice. It means you spend your whole life waiting until you're good enough, waiting till you've done enough, waiting till enough people have told you that you're capable. And meanwhile, the thing you actually want to do, the trip, the business, the conversation, whatever the leap is, just sits there, waiting for a version of you that might never arrive. Because you're waiting for confidence before you act, and confidence apparently requires results you haven't got yet. And it's a trap. And I know, because I used to be in it. So I want to offer you something different. 3 things I learned, not from a book, but from 4 years riding a motorcycle solo across India. I want to teach you where confidence actually comes from. So let me take you back to the beginning of this. I had this deep desire to explore India. I didn't want to explore it as a tourist on a bus, looking at the country from behind glass. I wanted to be in it, to feel it, to meet people in the places where they actually live. And the only way I could think of doing that really properly was to buy a motorcycle and do it on a motorcycle, because I love riding motorcycles. That part wasn't the problem. The problem was everything else. So India's roads are an experience unlike anything in the Western world. The driving is intense, it's chaotic, it's unpredictable. And don't get me wrong, I was a woman traveling alone, and I had to think about safety in a way that most men traveling the same route simply didn't have to. So there were real constraints on my freedom that weren't applying to the guys. And I kept watching these guys, these backpackers, these adventurers, riding all over India on motorbikes, doing exactly what I wanted to do. And I remember this very clear moment where I thought to myself, well, if they can do it, why can't I? Not in an angry way, but in just a genuine way. Like, why not me? And a lot of people around me had an answer to that question. They told me I couldn't do it. They told me it was too dangerous. They told me it was too ambitious. They told me that I wasn't the right person for this kind of trip. And here's what I want you to notice about that moment, because this is important. I didn't have a track record that proved them wrong. I hadn't done this before. I had no evidence that I could pull it off. By the logic of confidence comes from results, I had absolutely no business feeling confident about this. But I made a decision anyway. And the decision was simply this. My desire to do this was bigger than my fear of failing at it. That's it. That was the whole thing. Not, I know I can do this. Not, I've done things like this before. Just, I want this more than I'm afraid of it. And that felt like enough to start. So here's the first thing I want to teach you. Most people treat fear as a stop sign. So they feel scared. They interpret that as information, like, this isn't for you, turn back, Wait until you're ready. And so they wait. And the fear doesn't go away. It just gets louder because you've been listening to it. But what if fear isn't a stop sign? What if fear is just noise? What if the only question that actually matters is, how much do I want this? Because here's what I've learned. Fear and desire can coexist. They aren't opposites. You can be terrified of something and you can want it deeply at the same time. And in that moment, you get to choose which one you're going to let drive. I was scared of riding in India. Of course I was. The roads are completely unpredictable. There were endless moments of danger. There were days where I didn't know at all, was I making the right decision? But my desire to see this country, to connect with its people, to know what I was truly capable of was always bigger. So I let that be my driver. So the question I want you to think about is, what is the thing in your life right now where your desire is bigger than your fear, but you're letting the fear win? Because that gap between what you want and what you're allowing yourself to go after, this is where confidence goes to die. So let me come back to that day in the Himalayas. I was up in a place called Ladakh. Ladakh is in the far north of India, right up by the border of Pakistan. And it is home to the highest motorable road in the world. And I rode it. And the day that I described at the beginning of this, the mud, the snow tunnel, the altitude sickness, that was just such a massive day. That's what the road looked like that day. And I want to be honest with you about what it felt like in the middle of it. It was hard. So my body was seriously struggling with the altitude. I could barely think properly. And I only had a certain amount of time that I could be at those heights before I had to come down so it didn't do any serious damage to me. And the roads were unlike anything I'd ever ridden before. I mean, there were moments where I genuinely didn't know if I was going to make it through. There were times where I would be riding and there would be a waterfall on one side, and in the middle was all these rocks that I had to ride over, and on the other side would be a cliff. So I had to make a real decision. Had to make a real decision to keep going. Not because I was fearless, not because I was certain, but because stopping felt worse than continuing. When I got to where I was staying that night, I was muddy, I was exhausted, it was altitude sickness. The feeling I had was extraordinary. Not because someone gave me a certificate. Not because I posted it and people told me I was amazing. The feeling came from inside. It was mine and it belonged to no one else. And that's something no result can give you and no failure can take away. It lives in you. It becomes part of who you are. So the guys who ride through India, experienced riders, people who know these roads, when they find out what I've done, they're genuinely amazed. And I'll be honest, it's nice to hear, but it doesn't add to how I feel about it. Because what I feel about it was already complete before anyone said a word. That's what I mean when I say confidence comes from within. Now here's the second thing. When I saw those guys riding across India and I thought to myself, well, why not me? I was doing something really important without realizing it. I was refusing to accept other people's definition of what I was capable of. So we absorb so much of our self-image from the outside world, from what people tell us, from what we see people like us doing or not doing. You know, from the absence of role models. I didn't see any women doing what I wanted to do. And that absence can feel like a message. This isn't for people like you. But it's not a message. It's just a gap, and gaps can be filled. So the people who told me I couldn't do this, they weren't malicious. Most of them were probably trying to protect me. But they were also, whether they knew it or not, projecting their own limitations onto me. Their own fear of what they couldn't do was showing up as a verdict on what I couldn't do. And here's the thing about waiting for permission. No one is coming to give it to you. So the permission you're waiting for, to take up space, to try the hard thing, maybe to believe that you're capable, you've got to give that to yourself. So the moment I stopped waiting for someone to confirm that I was the kind of person who could ride a motorcycle through India and just decided I was that kind of person, everything changed. So you don't need a track record. You don't need a role model. You don't need someone to go first and prove it's possible. You just need to decide. Before I come to the third thing, I just want to say to you, go to the description, do the happiness quiz, see where you're at in your journey so I can see if there's any way I can help you be more confident. Don't forget to do that. All right, this brings me to the third thing, which is the one I want you most to hear. Your worth is not your results. So I know that we all know this intellectually, but we don't live it. Because if we lived it, we wouldn't be so paralyzed by the fear of failing. So we wouldn't need to wait until we felt ready. We wouldn't crumble when things didn't go the way we planned. But here's the truth. There were days in India where things went wrong, terribly wrong. Days when I got beaten up by the road. Days where I made the wrong call, where I took the wrong road, where I found myself in situations I wasn't prepared for. One day I set out for a 2-hour ride. Didn't find the place where I had to sleep for 12 hours. I had a friend with me. We didn't know if we were going to make it. So not every day looked like arriving somewhere triumphant, where you were caked in mud, having conquered a mountain. Some days just looked like surviving. Some days looked like turning back. Some days looked like sitting on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, wondering what on earth I was doing. And my confidence, the real kind, the kind that lives inside, didn't depend on those days going well. It was already there. It wasn't built from a perfect record. It was built from the decision to keep showing up, from knowing who I was regardless of how that particular day went. And this is the shift that I want you to make. To stop asking, did I succeed at the thing, as a measure of whether you get to feel good about yourself, and start asking, did I show up as the person I want to be? Because that's entirely within your control, regardless of the outcomes. You're not your results. You were worthy before the mud, before the snow, before the altitude sickness. You're worthy before any of it. The journey just helps you remember that. So here's where I want to leave you. There's something in your life right now that you've been putting off. Something you've been telling yourself you'll do when you're ready, when you're more confident, when you've got more experience or more proof or more permission. And I want to ask you gently but directly, what if that day never comes? What if ready is not a destination you arrive at, but a decision you make? My desire was bigger than my fear. That was the whole foundation. There was no certainty. There was no track record. Just, I want this, and I'm going to let that be enough. So the mud and the snow and the altitude sickness, I didn't plan for those. I couldn't have, but I handled them. Because that's what we do when we stop waiting to feel ready and just start. So you already have what you need. It's already inside you. The only question is, what are you going to do with it? I hope this has been helpful. Don't forget, go away, do the happiness quiz now. Let's see where you're at. As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.